Oh, people at home, don't you dare be sour. Clap for SLZE Sports and feel the power. Yes, yes, yes. It is you, people at home, and it is I, Big E, of the New Day of the WWE, and I am here to tell you about the greatest sports talk show airing on Facebook Live Tuesdays at 9 p.m., and it's SLZE Sports. Of course, you know it's SLZE Sports. It's spelled SLZE. SLZE Sports, of course. They're big wrestling fans, and they love the New Day. They got great taste, but also they got the greatest sports talk you could ever hear. The greatest sports talk that could ever trickle into your eardrums. And these hosts are incredible people that are so knowledgeable about all things sports. I'm talking Coach Scott, Sweet Lou, and DNash. Can't forget DNash. So you know you got to tune in. I'm sure you already are, of course, because you got good taste. But just make sure to tell a friend to tune in. That's Tuesdays at 9 p.m. I'm talking SLZE Sports. Listen, do it, subscribe, like all the things that you can do. And tell a friend, and tell your auntie and your uncles and your dogs. Spread the word about SLZE Sports.
This is Hugs, Bruce, Hilda, Rebel Shell, Rock Clubster, Dixon Stones of the DC Roller Girls, and you're listening to SLZE Sports.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending, exciting, thrilling finish in the history of college football. You believe in miracles? Yes! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Live from the basement capital of the world, it's SLZE Sports.
It's one of those things that sucks you down into this giant tornado of awesome, bringing you the sleaze to the stellar and everything in between.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! It's a home run!
With your hosts, Coach Scott, Zoe, DNash, and Sweet Lou.
I don't believe what I just saw! I don't believe what I just saw!
It's time to tear apart the sports world and...
In a week that North Carolina A&T stayed in the MEAC for bowling. This is SLZE Sports. Right, D? Yeah, let's go.
Well, technically, they didn't join the MEAC in bowling. They never left.
Yeah, I know they
So, yeah.
I know. But, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of a sore subject right now for a lot of people. The coach, I don't know if you want to touch on that just yet.
I mean, if you want to jump right into it, I know it's big news for you. Obviously, everyone that listens and watches knows that DNash is a North Carolina A&T alum. So he's got the inward knowledge, especially with the great HBCU The Yard that you run over there too.
Make sure we get that right. That's inward, INWARD. Inward knowledge, because we don't want to get people out there confused. We want to make sure that we remind people that yes, the both of you are allies, and yeah, he wouldn't go ahead and say anything to that effect. So yes, inward knowledge. Inward.
We're not making sure we spell your mag correctly. We're making sure we spell inward correctly. Oh wow, good start off. Anyways, yeah, I mean, why not? Obviously the news broke.
I mean, it's
again.
Black History Month, there, Coach. We don't want to get nobody upset. We're a week away from getting out of this thing unscathed, and I don't want no troubles.
So yeah, obviously, we kind of touched on it last week that A&T was possibly going to move over to the Colonial, and that they then even like I think a day after the show, you would texted us about there was a vote going to happen and whatnot, and yeah, sure enough, they're going to join for everything but two sports, one of which I mentioned was bowling, which never moved out of the MEAC, but there's one other sport. Well, it's football that's not moving immediately, right?
Yeah, football's not moving immediately. They will move in 2023. So it's inevitable. And, of course, the move is being made. Let me go ahead and get my notes here because there are a lot of things. I'm going to try to run through this as quickly as possible based upon so people can have a general overview of what's about to happen.
Right.
According to Earl Hilton, who is the athletics director over at A&T, basically, before they even moved to the Big South, they had an organization do an assessment on conferences or where they would end up potentially moving if they were to ever move out of the MEAC, which, of course, we all know they eventually would. Mm-hmm. And back in 2015, it was told to them that moving to the CAA, based upon their academic and athletic aspirations, would be their best move. But at the time, based upon the members that were in the CAA, it wouldn't be cost prohibitive due to the amount of travel that they were looking to do.
Right.
But we all know, of course, I still like to call it the butterfly effect, thanks to Texas and Oklahoma. There were a lot of conferences that were posted of their programs, which led to other conferences poaching other lesser conferences, if you will, of their top tier programs. So, like I said, they were looking to move to the CAA as a potential option back in 2015. They didn't do so. We all know they moved to the Big South. And then as of November of 2021, the CAA sent an unsolicited invitation to A&T to invite them to the CAA. At that point in time, we already knew that James Madison was in the process of leaving the CAA. Mm-hmm. They basically reviewed the conference football woes of the Big South and were a little concerned about that, and that was the main reason why they reviewed the invite over to the CAA. And then this is the biggest thing that is a huge concern of mine, especially as it pertains to smaller conferences. You guys already know my affinity to FCS conferences and FCS programs. Hilton said that the NCAA will start getting involved. Well, I guess they're already involved in revenue sharing, but revenue sharing will change as of August of 2022. He said he didn't have any idea of exactly what revenue sharing would look like then, but based upon him, and I'm paraphrasing him, conference memberships will be conference membership will be important moving forward, more so than it was in the past as it pertains to revenue sharing, which leads me to believe the bigger your conference, the larger part of this pie that you're going to receive in revenue sharing. So if you're a smaller conference, come 2022, you may be a little bit concerned about that. So with taking that into consideration, along with the academic aspirations that A&T has, they want to move into what is considered to be an R1 or Research 1 level program. And I've learned that that's extremely difficult to do. There are not a lot of institutions that currently do that, but they had those aspirations. And in order to do so, they felt as though that they needed to move to the CAA, as well as competing on a higher level against what is considered to be the class of FCS football. And they felt as though that was the best move for them. So, like you said before earlier, Coach, the Board of Trustees voted on it last week. And as of today, the CAA made the official announcement that A&T will now become a member. So to help them out with their travel costs, which was a point of contention when they moved to the Big South, the CAA is looking to move into North and South divisions. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they have programs that will be football-only programs, and those divisions will look very interesting come 2023.
Now, D, how do you personally feel about this move?
I have mixed reactions. I understand the move. I just don't like it, because if I were to ask you what would be one of the things that you would need in order to compete in any conference, mm-hmm. I would say it would be money, because of course you need the money for the scholarships, you need the money for the facilities to attract the talent, and if you don't have the talent to win, the program becomes trash, right? And I shouldn't say trash. That's harsh to me. It becomes unattractive to potential recruits. Mm-hmm. And places where you get money, of course, donations So based upon the conversations that I'm hearing, there are hopes that donations, that corporate sponsorship increases, the revenue sharing hopefully helps. I'm a little concerned about the TV deal because now moving from the Big South over to the CAA, they're leaving the ESPN network of broadcasting to go to Flow Sports, which is a subscription-based program that a lot of people don't necessarily have and or want, because why?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, if you're a casual college sports fan, you have everything you need on ESPN and then potentially Fox Sports. Why am I going to the CAA unless I am a fan of why am I going to Flow Sports unless I am a fan of those conferences that have their games shown on Flow Sports?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if they can't get the money to compete, and as of right now, the A&T will be coming in at around $14 million in terms of annual revenue, which is about $4 million less than the lowest school in the CAA currently brings in, which is USWNT, which brings in $18 million in terms of revenue, and they don't have a football program. Everyone else is well over $22 million and above as it pertains to their annual revenue. And as you can see, $7 million, as a minimum of $7 million, it's going to be very difficult to compete against those programs if you can't get the money. And one of the places that they're hoping to get that money is alumni donations, which is going to be weird because a huge part of the alumni base does not like this move. You already currently have less than 9% of the alumni giving back to the athletics department as is. There are a lot of people that don't like this move. And I don't know, they're looking for that number to increase, and they have a plan to do so. I'm just trying to figure out how you give that or get that average to super casual Aggie alum to give back to an athletics department that they don't necessarily care about because they don't feel as though that they're going to get that HBCU culture that you get that they used to get when they were once in the MEAC.
Well put. Yeah, obviously a big move overall. We talked about it when you guys were going to the Big South, and it just seemed big for that to be happening. But yeah, I mean, we saw the Colonial just kind of go and get everyone they could to build that conference back up, and hopefully A&T does compete there, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, as we know,
I mean, if we run down the gauntlet real quick, Villanova, Delaware, William and Mary, Richmond. I mean, that's kind of the cream of the crop when you talk about FCS football.
Well, it's rough for basketball too with some of the schools in the.
But they're not getting Richmond or Nova for any others. Is Richmond moving over for basketball?
No, they're not. They're not. But that's the thing, of course, being that football is the revenue generating sport, and oddly enough, it's the one sport that gets the eyes outside of course, men's and women's basketball and track and field at A&T because of their recent success. But it seems as though whatever happens with football, so goes the criticism of the move with A&T, because that's exactly how it went with the Big South this past year. And with A&T going 5-6 this past season, there was a lot of criticism with that, not only with the move to the Big South, but with the current status of Sam Washington, the head football coach there.
So is Madison going to the A10?
God, where is Madison going? I thought they were going to Conference USA.
Yeah, they're going to FBS.
Oh, all the way around. I mean, they're already for football, but then they're going to compete in Conference USA in all sports.
I believe so.
I mean, it's such a hard thing because, there's always that football only, and then there's the every other sport aspect of it. And right, I would say, you could argue that the CAA is a better, at least men's basketball conference in the Big South, but without Madison, as you said, it's a pretty competitive, arguably the most competitive conference in football, at least in the East it is. There's some of those upper Midwest ones where, North Dakota and Montana and all those guys in Eastern Washington's all compete. But yeah, I mean, when you say they criticize going to the Big South, you said it was harder to compete in the Big South. That's why they went 5-6.
Yeah, I mean the Monmouth game was not Monmouth. I'm sorry, the Kennesaw State game was a game that was extremely close. I think, if memory serves me, they lost that game. I know it was by at least a score. The defense was capable of competing. It was the offense that had issues moving the ball up and down the field. And it's ironic enough because, of course, Monmouth, which was a power in the Big South, is now moving over to the CAA as well. So that's another reason why, I'm looking at the CAA. Even though they're losing, JMU is still being extremely competitive in the FCS.
Oh, yeah, because you got Towson's always a good CAA FCS school. Obviously, Delaware is a powerhouse. Right.
Yeah, and then, of course, with the Big South also losing Kennesaw State, that entire stock just completely dropped.
Right. Well, talking about lower conferences feeling the pain, they're also going to feel the pain in the FBS for a bit longer because, as we know now, for the next 4 years and the remainder of the CFP current structure, it ain't changing. It's going to be the 4 teams through 2025. And I know some people that listen and watch this show like that it's only 4. I think most,
no,
not you. But yeah. I think all of us have discussed that we really need it expanded and to allow at least one, group of 5 team, if not more, in to these things and getting conference champions in and whatnot. And again, they couldn't come to any conclusion. And I mean, say what you want, and everyone's going to say, oh, well, Cincinnati got blown out, and we talked about this when it was there. Lou brought it up. How many times has there been good games in the first round of the playoffs regardless with the 4? And yeah, you know what? Adding more teams may not help that, but you know what? Any given Saturday, and it can happen. And, we see upsets all the time. How do you know? I mean, it doesn't look like it on paper, but how do you know that some team doesn't all of a sudden upset Alabama and move on? And somebody that likes and says that Alabama shouldn't cost them because of that, because expanding and playing more games and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? Talk to the freaking tournament. Talk to whatever. How much does everybody love, the upsets that happen in the NCAA tournament, and they happen every year? It's basketball. It's a lot different of a game, obviously, than football, but every sport you love the upsets. They happen. If you have more teams in it, it'll happen. It's more exciting. At least people like me will watch more, but here we are, stuck with 4 teams for at least, 4 more years?
At least 4 more. Lou, do you have any comments? Because I got one, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, number one, I know we make jokes a lot, and I think when we talked about this a lot earlier, I know I got a couple personal messages from our good friend Adrian, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. I think he was a little upset that he felt like we put words in his mouth and that we misrepresented his opinion. So I'm not going to make any of those comments this time, and I apologize, David, if he thinks we were putting words in his mouth, because he said, he can comment all he wants on what we say, but he doesn't have a voice on the show while we're talking, so I won't do that. What I will do is make my opinion known about what I believe, the SEC feels, and, I know he might defend the SEC, but, the powers that be clearly made they made perfect the enemy of good here. They flooded this system with, 4, 5, 6 different proposals, and because nobody could agree on one proposal, we got nothing.
Right.
And it's my opinion that nobody wanted, certain people didn't want changes. Certain people in that room, there were 11 people in that room. There was basically the commissioner of every conference, all the Power 5 conferences, all the Group of 5 conferences, plus Notre Dame's AD, were all in that room, and they just kept putting all these different proposals out there. And if you have 6 different proposals and each one gets 1 vote or 2 votes each, you're never going to get a majority on anything, and that way nothing gets done. And my opinion would be that was the outcome that some people wanted. they didn't want expansion, so let's like say, oh, we want expansion. We're going to put this proposal out. But then they get somebody else to put another one out. They get put another one out, and some of them aren't that different than others. But if nobody can agree on anything, throw your hands up and nothing gets done, and that's exactly what we saw. Nothing got done. Some of those proposals were pretty similar, but if nobody wants to budge, and if proposal A is only slightly different than proposal B, but the two people backing proposal B don't get on board with proposal A and put them together into one, look what happens. Nothing gets done. And yeah, I mean, my opinion is if one conference is clearly, I mean, we can go back through the numbers and we've gone through this before. Like, what is the one conference that has been represented in all? I think we've had 7 CFP tournaments now.
Mm-hmm.
They've only one conference that's been in every single one. There's only one conference that's had 2 teams in more in one, and that's the SEC. They've had it twice. They've never been shut out. Every other of the Power 5 has been shut out at least once, if not twice. Actually, I think the ACC, this was the first time the ACC was shut out. I think they maybe only been shut out. This might have been the first time they've ever been shut out.
I think this was the first year, yeah.
Usually Clemson was in there, or Florida State in the early years of the CFP was in there. So, it's not hard to point a finger and say, well, who didn't want this? And I understand that if you made this 8 or 12 teams, they'd get 3 teams or maybe even 4 teams in there, and they'd get a cut of the pie too. And if it's a bigger pie, they're still going to get a cut, and maybe it's the same cut. But I don't know. It definitely, that's the phrase that keeps coming. They made perfect the enemy of good here. Somebody tried to make it perfect and threw enough different ideas out there that nothing got done. But I do think we will see something done at least in 2025, because this whole thing is done then. We're either going to have in 2026, we're going to have no playoff again whatsoever.
Yay!
We're going to be back to a bunch of drunk, old media guys voting.
SEC champion wins it all, no matter what.
And the media guys will not put up with that, because they're gonna want games, because they're gonna want games to put on TV and spend their billions of dollars on something. So I assume we're gonna have something, and this isn't like we get a whole rabbit hole talking about Major League Baseball, but like in collective bargaining agreements, a lot of the times, if nothing is agreed on, then the agreement stays. That doesn't exist here. It's not like, well, in 2026, if there's no agreement, then we stick with the 4. That doesn't exist in a media contract. Like, we don't automatically stick with it. Mm-hmm. That would have to be agreed upon. Now, of course, the 12 of them or 11 guys could get a room and say, well, we'll just stick with the same, but that would still have to be voted on. You still have to have a majority of 11 vote, and if the majority of 11 can't vote on anything, how are they going to vote on that? But it is very disappointing. I'm like Coach. I'm not saying that you're not going to have similar results, but it would just be nice to see more teams. It boggles my mind that you can have a sport with 120 schools and only 4 teams make your tournament. Mm-hmm. But, for 70, 80 years, we had media guys voting quote-unquote champions. As Sweet Lou likes to say, those are all mythical championships. Nobody ever won a championship until, 7 years ago. And when the BCS was also some mythical BS that, that was, again, based on polls and, some guy in his Commodore 64 with a computer. That was all BS too. When we had 4 teams, that was the closest and the first time I ever accepted that we had at least some semblance of a national champion. Sorry, D, I took a long time to talk.
No, that's fine, because, I was trying to reduce my comments as much as possible, because, during Black History Month, while wearing all black, I didn't want to seem like the militant dude by coming up here and saying that, that just sounds like another way to disenfranchise the small man, the little man, or the small conference in this instance, by only keeping it so that there's only 4 teams in this playoff, and we see who's getting hurt. Even in this instance, it's the group of 5. So my only response to this whole thing is, come on, son.
D, wait. Are you wearing black for the sake of wearing black?
I hate you, Coach.
That's good, Coach.
I hate you, Coach.
Man, that's taking like what, a 2 or a 3-year-old comment from you and throwing it back at you. But anyways.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's in my bio. on the page.
Yep.
And
All
I
right.
am wearing black for the sake of wearing
So
black.
to attempt to stay on schedule at least a little here, let's try to be a little speedy here. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a new senior defensive assistant and linebackers coach. They've hired Brian Flores. You surprised?
Slightly, but I mean, he's good at what he does. So why not?
He does have an outstanding.
Am I surprised that the only established black coach hired the black coach who's still in the league?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you forget about Lovie Smith now, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, he's quote unquote new. I mean, I know he's a retread because this is his third job, but I guess he could have hired him. But
yeah, he could have, but we already know how Houston feels about Brian Flores.
So we also have now found out that the NFL, I almost said the NXFL. The NFL is partnering with the XFL. Yep. The XFL is going to...
Are they now the NXS? Are they like an Australian pop group now?
I guess
why not?
So the XFL, they're partnering. The XFL is going to test out new rules, equipment, and officiating for the NFL. Good move? Surprised that that's happening?
It could be said that this move is a reflex.
Maybe it's just flexing.
God, that was a bad NXX joke? Okay, I guess. Actually, that's not even NXX. That was, Duran, wasn't it?
Don't know.
Yeah, I get my Australian pop groups mixed up, man. I'm not good with those.
Well, they're not from a land down under. That's totally different. That's Men at Work.
That's a whole different.
That's Men Without Hats.
Anyways, The Rock is the owner, trying to make a little bit of movement, at least try to make them relevant. I think whether it works out or not, I think to get in the NFL's vision and at least seen somewhat, I think can't be a bad thing for us for something trying to start up or restart. So it'll be interesting.
No.
It'll be interesting to see what it plays out and what rules and stuff they throw at the XFL to try out, or what uniforms they throw out. I guess helmets or protective gear, but we'll see. Also happening in the
it'll be all that stuff that that has been bounced around for years and years. But I saw something where they said that the NFL is kind of has missed out for years on not having NFL Europe. So this will be a great replacement for that.
Well, there's also been a rumor floating around with the NFL about players and the 2022 scouting combine. It's still a rumor, but there's up to 155 players represented by 13 different agencies that supposedly was going to announce on Monday. Obviously, has not happened as of yet. That they're going to boycott the scouting combine for concerns over the announced bubble and limitations of players' ability to interact with others.
Oh, so you mean for safety reasons? They're going to
For being too safe? I don't know. I thought it was taking it even further once again, but...
So they're going to boycott because of safety concerns. Gotcha.
Also, we don't have to delve into too much because I'm pretty sure it's going to come up in a few minutes when we get to the SLZE again, but Juwan Howard being suspended 5 games now for that punch/brawl that happened on the sidelines the other night. I don't know. It was.
We can talk about it now. I mean, it's been one of the most significant stories rolling around the sports world for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody didn't see, like, at the end of the Michigan-Wisconsin game, I don't know, it was Saturday or Sunday. Juwan took umbrage with some of the things that happened at the end of the game, and in the handshake line had something to say to Wisconsin coach. I can't remember his name. Is it Gary Gard? Is that the guy's name? They had a little clearly heated back and forth. Some Wisconsin assistants got into the argument, and at some point, Juwan took a swipe at the guy, which then the players got involved. There was lots of pushing and shoving.
Yeah, Greg Gard.
I think Greg Gard. Yeah, Greg Gard. I think 2 Michigan players and 1 Wisconsin player have been suspended a game. I think Greg Gard has been suspended for 1 game, but the big one is Howard. He's been suspended for 5 games, which is the rest of the Michigan regular season. I mean, I've heard reports that if Michigan had 8 games left, it would have been an 8-game suspension. That they just wanted to sit him down for a while. And some people, I've heard very few people say it's too lenient a punishment. I've heard some people say it's, too harsh a punishment. I've heard many people say it's too lenient a punishment, and there's some people that say he should be fired over this.
It's not a good example.
Lest anybody forget, he got into it last year on the sidelines with then Maryland coach Mark Turgeon, and they both had to be dragged away. At the end of a game, Juwan took, he had a problem with something Maryland did at the end of a game. And to get into like the specifics of what like his problem was, like in the last minute of the game, Wisconsin's up. I think they're only up like 14 points, so it's not a blowout, but they're up 14 points. So with under a minute to go, Wisconsin coach calls a timeout so that he can get his walk-ons in the game, which is not an uncommon thing to be seen. These are kids that don't get to play much. You want to get them into a conference game, so he calls a timeout. Well, then, like with I think like 10 seconds to go, he called another timeout because they couldn't get the ball above past half court in the 10-second rule. Why couldn't they get it past half court? Because Juwan's got the full court press on. Why are you full court pressing with 10 seconds left in the game and you're down 14? And that apparently was what Juwan's beef was because he called a timeout with 10 seconds left in the game. But why do you got your kids out there on a full court press?
He was trying to hit that rock and jock 15-pointer.
But no, it's not that the Wisconsin kids have the ball.
No, I know.
They can't get it past half court.
I get it. And
they call the timeout because they're about to get a violation called on them. I mean, you guys know the 10-second rule. You got 10 seconds to get it across that. So that's why he called the timeout so his kids didn't get a violation. But most of the time when the walk-ons are in there, they all just like throw up threes so they can say they scored a point during the regular season. I don't know. But again, not Juwan's first altercation with another coach.
Yeah. Which is why I have mixed reactions on this because, of course, he's the common denominator in both of these situations. Another aspect of the story that came out was, of course, it was because Juwan was grabbed as well. And he didn't like the fact that he was being grabbed by the other coach. But again, I'm not there. I can only see, and then when you only see and not hear, it's dicey.
Maybe Greg was just guarding himself.
Well,
the funny thing is, obviously, like Craig Gardner, I think is all of like 5'10". This would not be. I feel like this story. I sent it to you guys. A very similar story happened 3 days earlier in a game between Oral Roberts and North Dakota State. A little bit different situation. North Dakota State is winning again by over 20 points, or maybe 18-point lead. And Oral Roberts, who's the team that's down, is bringing it up at the end of the game, and a North Dakota State player stole the ball and went down and dunked at the buzzer, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got an 18-point lead. You shouldn't be stealing the ball and dunking on the other team.
Right.
And they go into the handshake line, and the North Dakota State guys are all high-fiving each other and all happy. I mean, you just won the point game by 18 points, but why are you stealing the ball and dunking when you're up, I guess, 16 points? And the Oral Roberts coach had something to say. And in that one, I don't think it was coach on coach. I think that was the Oral Roberts coach yelling at the North Dakota State players, you guys need to have some class. And that led to an altercation too, but none of us could name the Oral Roberts coach, the North Dakota State coach, or probably one player on either of those teams. They certainly aren't, a guy who played 2 decades in the NBA like Juwan Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Again, is why this whole thing is a story.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, I think that also was just a bunch of pushing and shoving. Nobody took a swipe at anybody.
Well,
but one of the guys from Oral Roberts did leave the situation with a bloody lip. I don't know how he got.
So maybe there was a little,
Yeah.
Maybe there was a punch thrown, or definitely was a pushing and shoving going on. You never know. Somebody trips, hits the floor. Who knows?
Well, moving on with the show. Also, in what was described by very outspoken and rightly so member and organizer Megan Rapinoe of the women's national team. A monumental win for women's sports and women's soccer in particular, because U.S. Soccer and the United States women's national team have reached a settlement agreement for $24 million on the long-standing lawsuit that they've had with the U.S. Soccer over equal pay. I mean, we've said it before, too. The U.S. women's national team, at least on home ground, tends to bring in more than the men's national team. That's happened a bunch. I understand the international is much different, and when you travel to other countries, it's going to be much different because of how big football, soccer is everywhere else. But, I mean, took them long enough, right?
It did. It did. You know, that's just the conversation, and that is being had, of course, as it pertains to equal pay for all sports.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that this one was long overdue, because the evidence was greatly in their favor.
Oh, yeah.
Especially not only with the success on the field, but how successful they are in terms of a draw financially in comparison to men's soccer.
Right, because as much as I completely understand and I'm all for, trust me, equal pay all over, you look at maybe like TV ratings and attendance for the NBA versus WNBA. There's at least a reasoning there. In America, for our two soccer teams, that did not stand the same way at all, which is why they at least reached this settlement, and good for them on it. Hopefully it brings it closer to where they want everything else to go to from here, but at least big news from that situation. In a move in wrestling that surprised nobody, the dead man, The Undertaker, will be in the Hall of Fame this year. DNash, I know you're surprised.
Oh, my God. It's like saying Peyton Manning made it to the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Word.
What do you mean? Okay. Tom Brady made the Hall? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So, like, a year after he retires, of course, he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm not surprised at all.
Right. Also, I don't know if you guys saw this, but right before the All-Star break, DeMar DeRozan did some incredible feat that he broke records, and not only just anybody's records. He broke the mark that was set by Wilt Chamberlain. It was for scoring 35 points and shooting better than 50% from the field in 7 consecutive games.
Mm-hmm.
That broke the record by Wilt, who did it for 6 games in 1963. So, DeRozan making a bunch of noise, and, well, there's a real reason why Chicago Bulls are actually quite in the running right now, too, and having a heck of a season.
But, yeah, so it wasn't just the Wilt record. There was another record that was attached to Jordan as well. So whenever your name is attached to Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain in the record books, you probably done something pretty big.
Absolutely. So then Joel Embiid says that if he stays healthy, he likes his chances to be the MVP. Do you agree with him?
I mean, of course, he's most definitely leading the pack. It also depends upon what happens with the rest of the competitions out there right with him right now. Of course, you know, last year's winner and Nikola Jokic is right there behind him. Giannis is behind him as well. If Steph Curry can somehow extrapolate what he did during the All-Star game and stretch that out for the remainder of the season, he's going to be a viable threat as well. John Morant, who's been playing wonderful this past season in Memphis. And then, like you just said, with DeMar DeRozan, if he can somehow stretch that out for the rest of the season too, he'll be a threat. And then now with Chris Paul being out for what? I think they said 4 to 8 weeks with his thumb.
Right.
You know, Devin Booker, if he can turn it up a notch, might end up being a late season favorite for the MVP. But as of right now, I'll be intrigued to see not only how Joel does, but how Joel meshes with James Harden playing there with him, and how his numbers looked in.
And also an interesting record, so to speak, the fastest to 700 3-pointers in the NBA. Can you get any of the top 4 that are the fastest to 700 threes? You probably get one of them for sure.
Of course, it's Steph Curry,
who's number 4, by the way.
It's only 4, right?
At 276 games, and he's 4th on the list.
Was Steph is 4th on the list?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Well, they shoot a lot more now than they used to.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure guys like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller and Mark Price, and none of them are on that list, right?
Nope.
Nope. So that means it's all new guys then. So what? James Harden?
Not James Harden. Newer guys. Well, okay, so Steph did it in 276 games.
Uh-huh.
Coming in 3rd in 270 games, Donovan Mitchell.
Wow.
So and one game ahead of him at 269 games, Buddy Hield.
Yeah, okay.
But he shoots a lot of them.
And at number 1, and this is only in 216 games, someone that you would never even think of, but Miami Heat's own Duncan Robinson.
Duncan Robinson, yeah. Makes sense.
He did it quicker by like 50 games than anybody else, which is just nuts.
Oh my God, yeah.
And also, as you mentioned, Lou, Team LeBron had been undefeated, and hey, now Team LeBron's 5-0 in the All-Star game. So, bet on Bronny. Did have a few rest in pieces this week. First, of course, D at 80, legend, and I will say Washington Redskins legend, because obviously he played when they were known as that. Charlie Taylor passed away on Saturday.
Yeah, I've said on the show multiple times, there are a lot of people in this area that say, that use the math equation. 42 is greater than 43 is greater than 44. And they held Charlie Taylor in high regard in that. So, yeah, for him to be kind of like the blueprint to what we see in terms of a back that can also catch the ball out of the backfield, I don't think he gets the credit and the due that he deserves outside of the D.C. area for that. But, yeah, hopefully they honor him this upcoming season without fumbling the ball like they did with Sean Taylor this past season and making it some sort of afterthought. And he gets the honor that he deserves.
Absolutely. Also passing away of the Florida State family. At just 47 years old, this player was the heart of the dynasty era. 93 to 96, he played at Florida State, obviously winning one national championship as the big-time fullback for Florida State. Loved by the players, loved by everybody there. Clarence Pooh Bear Williams.
Wow.
Died in a car accident Thursday morning at just 47. Also, the New York Rangers front, the Hall of Famer Emile Francis passed away as well. He was the GM coach there for a long time after playing in the league earlier on. But yeah, another Hall of Famer passing away. But moving on, gentlemen, we are SLZE Sports, SLZeSports.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at SLZE Sports every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. Without further ado, it's time for the 541st Sleaze of the Week.
Well, we already talked about the Juwan Howard situation with the fight at the end of the Wisconsin-Michigan game. We also kind of talked about the fight at the Oral Roberts North Dakota State game. So we got those two. So Bud Dupree, the defensive end for the Tennessee Titans, he was arrested after getting into an altercation at a Walgreens. Apparently, he attacked the funny thing about this one is it happened way back on January 2nd. I'm not sure why this is just coming to light, and he's just being booked now on misdemeanor assault charges. But apparently he hours after their home game against the Miami Dolphins on June 2nd, he got into an altercation with an employee at a Walgreens.
Wait a minute, did Miami win that game, Coach?
Against Tennessee?
I'm gonna think they did. Didn't
they did
that
not.
was the streak.
No, that's the game they lost.
That was the one that broke your streak,
That was
right?
the one that broke the streak.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, maybe he had a bad
He
game
won.
in that game.
So Bud won the game and was still so hyped up and angry that he had to beat up some guy in a Walgreens. So leading to the sleaze we talked about a few weeks ago with Alvin Kamara and the guys in his entourage beating up a guy the night before the Pro Bowl in Vegas. Mm-hmm. One of the guys in his entourage was actually Chiefs cornerback Chris Lemons, who's also now been arrested on felony battery charges. Because we did ask that question at the time, like, the reports were that there were 4 or 5 people involved in assaulting the one person, and the only one we ever heard about was Kamara. And I'm like, well, were the other guys arrested? This little posse of guys. Well, one of them was another NFL player, Chiefs cornerback Chris Lamons. I guess it's Lamons, Lamons. So we at least know one other person. Here we go. Our favorite team to make fun of, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Apparently, a few years ago, as we've given so much grief to the Washington football team and their problems with sexual assaults and sexual harassment of their employees and what's going on with those investigations. Well, apparently in 2015, the Dallas Cowboys paid off several of their cheerleaders. Over $2.4 million was paid out to 4 different members of the iconic Cowboy cheerleading squad because one of their executive vice presidents, who was it? Richard Dalrymple, who's a senior vice president for public relations and communications, apparently used his key card to sneak into their changing room and spy on them. I got a key card. I can go anywhere I want in the facility. I'm going to go watch the cheerleaders change their clothes. Yeah. And they allegedly paid off each woman at least, it says $399. I love that they actually have a specific number. Each woman received $399,523.27.
Wow.
I have no idea how this, somebody must have got a court document down to the penny how much they paid these women. What I don't understand is 4 times that is not 2.4 million. It's like 1.6 million. Maybe the rest is what the lawyers got paid.
Maybe
pays to be a lawyer. The only other one I have, other than I don't know if you guys have heard this story. The world of professional golf. I wouldn't say been rocked, but definitely been. There's been a lot of upset going on. I don't know if this touches your guys' radar. So Phil Mickelson has just been raked over the coals this week. There's a group of Saudi investors. So, Saudi people have all the money in the world, right? They got oil money. They got more money than, they could buy and sell all of us in the drop of a hat. They've hired, there's Invest has hired a group to basically create a new tour. And they think if they have enough money, they could bring in enough of the big name stars and they could basically destroy the PGA Tour and just start up their own tour. And one of the guys they got on board, it sounds like, is Mickelson. Mickelson's 51 years old. He doesn't even play full-time on the PGA Tour. He plays on the Champions Tour. But what really got things going was, and there was talk that a couple of guys skipped playing in an event a couple of weeks ago Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson went to play in a tournament over there. And it's not uncommon. Guys have been playing tournaments in Saudi Arabia for years, especially early in the season like this. But a very experienced veteran golf writer named Alan Shipnuck, wrote for Sports Illustrated for years, is coming out with a biography, not an unauthorized biography of Mickelson. And he has a quote in there where Mickelson talked about why he's doing this, and the quote paints Mickelson in a horrible light. Basically, Mickelson said, "Yeah, I know these guys are scary MFers. It's kind of not suited for work language." He's like, "I know they killed that journalist last year. You basically can be murdered for being gay, but hey, this is life-changing money we're talking about, and if we can, turn the PGA Tour on its head, then it's worth taking all this money and taking these guys' money." And guys like Rory McIlroy have come out and just blasted Mickelson. This past weekend at the tournament, Rory McIlroy literally, took aim right at Mickelson and called him naive, selfish, egotistical, and ignorant. So Mickelson literally came out today and backtracked, said everything was taken out of context and it was all off the record. So he basically threw the journalist under the bus. Said he's just trying to make the game better, and he has all these problems with the way the PGA Tour is run, and that's all he's trying to do by working with these Saudi investors. But it's been a mess. And there are people that are because of this, Mickelson will never captain a Ryder Cup team because of this incident.
Probably not.
That he's never going to get a job working for, as a golf commentator, that this has completely destroyed his legacy. This are the things I've read in the last week. That because he decided to go all in, and basically the comments that have been taken, I don't know if they're out of context or not, or if he was off the record or not, but he basically said, "I don't care how horrible these Saudi people are, kill. The money that they're offering is worth us going in with them." I thought it's worth us. But he's now put out a huge statement today where he's backtracked from all of it, said it was all taken out of context, apologized for hurting people, said he's taking time off the tour and he's going to go spend time with his family. The usual, I got to go spend time with my family now. I love when that's,
after you spend that nice Saudi Arabian check? Okay.
They were literally talking about paying guys $30 million a year just to show up. And I think that, and basically everybody is now falling in line. Dustin Johnson said, the PGA Tour has my full backing. Justin Thomas, Rory, obviously, John Rahm have all been I'm about playing on the PGA Tour. This is, dead in the water. Tiger, supposedly, even though he probably will never play full-time golf again, was my loyalty lies with the PGA Tour. So Mickelson definitely got left out on his own here. No matter how much money was being offered, they literally were offering these guys $30 million a year, just as a contract.
That's insane.
Just join our tour, you're going to get $30 million. It doesn't matter how, I assume they'd have to play some, but just basically leave the PGA Tour and come join us.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money. These are guys that make, $10 million playing golf.
Right.
But
oh man, you made it a little tough with Phil Mickelson.
Sorry.
To pick them over Dallas like that. God, and I'm about to defend Phil Mickelson for that situation.
Yeah, it's a very nuanced story, and I haven't really had time to digest his statement. I just read about it as we were getting on the air tonight. Again, like I said, he's backtracking from a lot of it. Who knows? Maybe a lot of it was made. He clearly did an interview with this guy for his book. Mm-hmm. I've read that Alan Shupnick's guy's work for years. He's been one of the main golf writers for Sports Illustrated for a long time. But that doesn't mean he isn't, looking for a scoop, and he got one. And this has rocked the world of golf.
Yeah.
These comments, I've read those comments in 5 or 6 different stories that Mickelson said. But Mickelson also, a lot of people thought he was just trying to go after the commissioner of the PGA, and he was like, they don't pay us enough money. There's not enough. I mean, these guys, again, these are guys that make, especially him, millions and millions of dollars a year, and they said they wanted more media rights fees. He was all pissed off because I guess, when you play on the PGA Tour, they have rights to all the video. You as a player, you hit a shot, you don't have rights to the video of yourself because you are a player on the tour. Either CBS or the tour owns that video. Mm-hmm. They can show that forever. You as the player do not own your own. So it's a little bit of like the image and likeness stuff.
Yeah.
And Phil wants that changed. Now the $4 million you got in that tournament, I guess, is supposed to make you happy, but I guess maybe it doesn't. But, yeah, so we got the Cowboys, the two different basketball fights, the Bud Dupree, and the golf thing.
I mean, the fights are embarrassing to NCAA athletics and especially to what's going on with Juwan Howard, regardless of the situation. But yeah, you want to go ahead and take your own discretion and say, hey, since I have access, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of access and do upskirt photos of women. I can't bypass the chance to take advantage of the Cowboys messing up, so I got to go with Dallas.
Does it just
with that.
Does it go to Dallas or does it go to the specific?
I would say I would list the guy / the Dallas Cowboy organization. I mean, they haven't fired him, coach. That's the crazy part about it. That guy still works for him. That's why it goes to the Cowboys and him, coach.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because they paid the women off, and that guy still works there. If that's not a fireable offense, what the heck is?
Which is why when people kept saying that they want to go ahead and investigate, get those emails from the Washington football team, I said, football fans, watch what you ask for.
Right.
Because there's a chance that your team may be involved in that too.
All right, so let's talk about our 10 picks from last week. It started with the 3-point contest, which Karl Anthony Towns won, which, of course, none of us picked. Luke Kennard and Trae Young tied, so Lou and D both got it, tied as the second place. I had Zach LaVine, who didn't even make it to the final. The dunk contest, Obi Toppin won what was a very blah dunk contest, but that got me that one correct. Team LeBron, as I said earlier, won 163-160. We all got that one correct unanimously. Texas Tech beat Baylor in college basketball, 83-73. D and I had that one. St. Mary's knocked off the Dons of San Francisco, 69-64. Lou, you, and DNash both had that one. Illinois beat Michigan State, 79-74. You both had that one as well. Then we all went unanimous for UConn over Xavier and got another one, 72-61. The Huskies won. Then for our pillow fights, we had Prairie View A&M versus Arkansas Pine Bluff, and for the second time in less than a calendar year, Pine Bluff lets me down again. And Prairie View A&M wins 92-84. So Lou was the only one to get that correct. Then we had the Ivy League pillow fight. We all took Dartmouth, and thank God, because they destroyed Columbia 79-50.
Wow.
But that did make us 3-0 in unanimous picks this week. The final pick was Iowa State versus Oklahoma in women's college basketball. Iowa State trounced them 89-67. Lou and I had that one correct. So, for those counting, Lou had 8 correct on the week. DNash at 7. I had 6. So right there, it was done. In the Daytona 500, none of us picked Austin Cindric, who actually won the thing. D, you had Bubba Wallace, who did finish second, though. And I had Ryan Blaney, who finished fourth. Lou's Denny Hamlin finished down at 37th. So he was the only one way off on there. But it didn't matter, as DNash picks up his 6th tiebreaker correct on the year, literally leading those 6-1-0. So you're doing well in the tiebreakers thus far.
Nice, top 5 guys.
Yeah.
2 top 5s are good.
Yeah. And so now
Denny went out. Big crash early. I saw it.
So
It
on
wasn't his fault.
So on the year now, Lou and I actually have the same percentage. We're both at 53.8% of our picks correct. D way up at 58.8% of his picks. Regardless, still doing better than we've done. However, I will say in the next 3 weeks or so, that's going to go down because we know the conference tournaments are coming up. And, we usually struggle at that point because of how we pick them. But we'll see. And unanimously, by the way, we are back at 66.7%. So 2/3 of the time we're picking them correct when picking unanimously. On the year now, DNash has 8 points to my 5 to lose 1. So D taking the lead again. All right.
Back in the black.
You are back in the black.
I was in negative numbers there for a while.
You were negative 2 just 2 weeks ago, I believe. All right, so we're going to start with 2 NBA games. D, why don't you get us started? The Dallas Mavericks at the Utah Jazz, Friday night, 9 p.m. at Vivint Arena.
Let me go with the Mavs.
Lou.
Let me go with the Jazz. Leave it wide open for Coach.
I'll take the home team. Give me the Jazz. So Lou, then we have the Memphis Grizzlies at the Chicago Bulls, Saturday, 8 p.m. at the United Center.
Oh, I kind of feel like this is a coin flip. The Bulls are hot. I think I saw they won a bunch of games in a row, but the Grizzlies are a very good road team. You said all that good stuff about DeRozan, so give me the Bulls.
I'm going to think he stays hot at this point, too. I'm going Bulls as well. D?
Let me go Lone Bear on this one. I'm taking the Grizzlies.
Whether it's Vancouver or Memphis, right?
I guess on this point, yeah.
Two islands for D.
Two islands for D.
So then our NCAA games, I went heavy on them because I knew the conference tournaments were coming up, so there's limited time for us to pick college games. But I did have a solid one. And I went in order. I didn't put a game of the week this time. That's why this is Wednesday night, the first game.
Oddly enough, all of these college picks have been tough picks.
Well, first up from the Southern Conference, we got the Furman Paladins at the Samford Bulldogs. 2 teams fighting for a spot. Wednesday, 8 p.m. at the Pete Hanna Center in Birmingham. Starts with me, and yeah, golly, I know this one, sure. I've gone home. Let me go away. Let me take Furman on this one. D.
Take the Bulldogs.
Samford, do. Lou?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with our pattern, Coach. I like our pattern. I think a paladin beats a guy with a sword beats a bulldog.
Well, come on, that's rough. We don't want to condone any dog violence on the show.
Animal violence?
All right, so our fourth pick, D, now that's been an island 3 times in a row. You got number 22, Ohio State, at number 15, Illinois, Thursday, 9 p.m. at the State Farm Center in Champaign.
I'm going to take the Fighting Illini.
Lou.
Well, I'm going to join D on this one, so he's not alone, because I feel bad that he's been left alone so often.
Yeah. I'm like Michael Jackson. I'm not alone.
Well,
that's the only way I'm be like Michael Jackson. Sheesh.
While we've been doing well at unanimous, it's not going to start here. Look, I think Ohio State is fighting harder than Illinois, trying to sink their place up in the tournament. They need a couple big wins. This would help immensely to basically solidify it. So give me Ohio State. Lou, the fifth pick of the week, you got number 6, Kentucky, at number 18, Arkansas, Saturday, 2 p.m. at the Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville.
Oh, I mean, Kentucky might be my pick to win the whole tournament. I'm starting to lean that way. So give me the Wildcats.
I'm agreeing with Lou for the 4th time tonight. Give me Kentucky. D?
Wow.
Let me go ahead and take those Razorbacks from Fayetteville.
Now, granted, D, you've been picking better than me, D, but may I remind you, this didn't go very well for me a couple weeks ago when I tried to do this. Anyway.
Actually, you actually split. That the week you had 6 islands.
Oh, I split them 3 and 3.
Literally island picks.
All right, so then
it wasn't bad. I mean, it was right down the middle.
Our sixth pick that starts with me comes from the Northeastern. Wagner at Bryant. The Seahawks at the Bulldogs, Saturday, 4 p.m. at the Chase Athletic Center in Smithfield, Rhode Island. I like this matchup a bunch. Again, I think Wagner could be a hot team going into it, though. So I'm going to go road again. I went home for pros, road for college. Give me Wagner. D.
I'm going another Bulldog route and take Bryant.
So wide open for Lou.
Yeah, I think the flying animal will be. I don't like Bulldogs, man. I'm going Wagner. Yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5. D 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
So our seventh pick of the week is number 5 Kansas at number 10 Baylor, Saturday 8 p.m. at the Farrell Center in Waco.
It's me, right?
That is D.
See, this is where it gets interesting. So this will probably be one of the ones that is not an island for me. I'm taking Kansas.
Lou.
Well, we'll see, because I keep sticking with Baylor and I keep losing, but I'm gonna stick with Baylor one more time. But I bet I'm on the island this time.
You are, because I'm rolling Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Give me Kansas. All right, so then we have 2 pillow fights for pretty much the last time of the year. I almost threw in a third just because, I like to throw in these college basketball pillow fights. Teams that we don't get to hear from much otherwise. So, Lou, you do get to start off the first one. Our 8th pick of the week when St. Francis's Red Flash take on the Sacred Heart Pioneers. It's 8-19 versus 8-19. Saturday, 2 p.m. at the William H. Pitt Center in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Wasn't that hospital on Scrub?
Yes, it was Sacred Heart.
Going Sacred Heart.
That's great logic. One of my favorite TV shows. Give me Sacred Heart.
It's hard to pick pillow fights.
D?
Oh, it's on me.
Yeah.
Oh, was the coach not with me because of Scrubs?
Oh, yeah, I love Scrubs.
Oh, nice.
So you guys both took Sacred Heart, right?
Yeah.
So not only am I going Lone Wolf again, I'm going to go ahead and pay homage to one of my favorite songs from a movie. Flash!
Love Flash Gordon, huh?
Universe. He saved every one of us.
So our second pillow fight of the week and 9th pick of this week, we got 4-win Green Bay Phoenix at the 3-win IUPUI Jaguars. Saturday, 4:45 at the IUPUI Gymnasium in Indianapolis. The smart says to take Green Bay, but IUPUI used to be something. It ain't anymore, but I'll take them. Give me IUPUI. D.
Winless on the road this season. Green Bay is on a 10-game losing streak currently. I am going to take IUPUI. UP.
Lou?
UI.
Again, I like the flying things. Give me the Phoenix. I'll take the
You're taking
hit on this one.
You're taking the fighting Aaron Rodgers?
The Phoenix, yeah.
I was going to go to
Yeah, we should have talked about that. You see that ridiculousness?
What's
We
that?
should have talked about his Instagram. Like,
Oh, no, we will.
Good.
Anywho, the 10th and final pick of the week, it comes from women's college basketball once again. Number 10, Indiana, at number 13, Maryland, Friday, 8 p.m. at the Xfinity Center in College Park. DNash.
I'm going to take the Lady Hoosiers.
Lou.
Give me the lady Terps.
We might as well finish off strong and finish the way we started. Give me the Terrapins.
Yeah. This is going to be pretty or ugly. Either or.
Or split in the middle. So, Lou,
70. You're on 7 islands.
7
you know,
islands.
to me,
Unanimous pick this week.
To me, it doesn't matter where D takes this because he's been winning the tiebreakers anyways. But since he'll go last, Lou, we're picking the Honda Classic. We're going a little golf here Thursday through Sunday at the PGA National Resort, not too far from my stomping grounds in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And I wanted to throw this. I made sure to put the thing. It's on your rundowns as well because I know we've had this before. We're in golf. There are times we've picked players that have tied. So if that happens, the tiebreaker of the tie is the lowest of the 4 rounds. So whoever had the lowest of the 4 rounds between the 2 golfers would break their own tie. Got it?
That's a good tiebreaker of the ties.
We need something.
Yeah.
So anyways, Lou.
I mean, that could technically be tied too, of course, but.
Well, then whatever. Then we're tied, and there's a half point to be given.
I was looking at your list and the guys who were bolded. I'm going to go a little outside guy we don't talk about much, but I think has had a hot start to his season. I'm going with Billy Horschel.
Billy Horschel. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and...
The guys you bolded. Well, he was a weird group you bolded. There's some guys on there we probably wouldn't have heard of. I almost took Sunjay M. I like Sunjay M.
Well, we'll go ahead and take, got to represent the Seminoles. Give me Brooks. D?
It's interesting that you bring up Sunjay M because that's a guy who I was looking at taking, and you took one of the guys who I was looking to take, and Billy Horschel. Now, do I go with the name that I can't pronounce or with the name that I can pronounce? Which one do I go with?
The one you can't, of course.
The one I can't? Okay, so I'm going to go with Christian. Was it Bezudina?
Oh,
Is that how that's pronounced?
I don't have the list. I don't have the list in front of me. How do you spell it?
Bezuideen.
I would guess Bezuidenhout.
Bezuidenhout. Yeah, that guy.
Oh yeah, Christian Bezuidenhout. Yeah, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
And I'm the golf guy here.
All right. Well, you definitely have the longest name picked.
I think there's 2 8.
Yep.
But you know what? D picked him, so he's about to win the tournament. Good job.
Exactly.
Way to go, Christian. Oh, man. Anyways, we are SLZE Sports. SLZeSports.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at SLZE Sports every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. And check out also, we now have our YouTube channel going. Look it up, SLZE Sports. Our shows will be, for now, the recorded versions will be put on there. And eventually, hopefully, live versions will air on there as well. But we're working on it. So with that being said, it is time for DNash to take us to the hot seat.
We all know how the show goes. It's basically football season all year round with us, with the exception of the NCAA tournament and a brief break to go ahead and get a taste of some MLB food. So what do? I go ahead and I lean on an aspect of the NFL. Thank you, Lou, for reminding me. I completely forgot that I actually did this last year, so I'm doing it again. But this time without the sultry sounds from Keith Sweat, which is touching back on to the NFL quarterback carousel. But I'm going to go ahead and addend how I want to go ahead and name this. I'm going to call this free agent, trade, or draft. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys 3 options on how certain teams are going to fill their potential quarterback needs with this upcoming season. Now, what I want to do first, though, is pinpoint those teams that we feel as though are going to need to address their potential quarterback needs for this upcoming season.
Okay.
Now, I guess you guys can agree with me here, right? That these teams already have a quarterback in place that they're pretty happy with. And that would be the likes of Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Kansas City, the LA Chargers, the Cowboys, and the Rams. Am I missing one?
I mean, I haven't heard anything about Stafford going away yet, so.
I would think the Jaguars are pretty set. I don't think they're doing anything with Trevor Lawrence.
I'll get to those guys in just a moment.
So
Okay.
this means.
Matter of fact, no, let me get to those guys now then. Just so you can go ahead and get that covered.
Okay.
So,
No, all those teams you have are definitely teams we don't need to talk about. Yes, they have their quarterback set. They're not going to be looking to change that position.
yeah, and then there's a grouping that I like to call the Young Guns. Now, they may not have necessarily a lot of success, but it seems as though that these teams may be, or seem to be, at least for the moment, invested in their decisions with making these, especially being that all of these guys are high draft picks for these organizations. New England, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Bears, and then, of course, with, God, what is his last name? Trey Lance with the San Francisco 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's that grouping. They got a guy, but there's a question mark on that guy. But for various reasons, they may not be capable of moving on from this guy unless they make him trade bait. And those teams would be Cleveland, Tennessee, Philadelphia, the Giants, Detroit, Atlanta, Carolina, and Miami.
Carolina even have a guy? Who's Carolina's guy?
They have Sam Darnold.
That's right. They traded
obligated with them. So yeah.
Right. They traded for him last year.
To be honest, right now, I would move Tua up into the previous high drafted quarterback. That's the starter there. Because with what's his name there now? Mike. Good Lord, the new head coach.
McDaniel.
Mike McDaniel. See, I don't even know his name. I got to learn his name better. Mike McDaniel has already said that him and Tua are working together, and he's the one that thinks he can make Tua a better quarterback. There's been absolutely no conversation at all, and I'd say that's pretty much a done deal.
Okay. I mean, to be truthful,
I would, as a unbiased observer, keep him in the group you have him in, because, I mean, my GM came out and said, Jalen Hurts is our guy for next year, and everything in the scuttlebutt is that they're in on the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, they're in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, they're in on the Russell Wilson. Coach, if they were offered Aaron Rodgers, you don't think they're ready and willing to?
If they were offered Aaron Rodgers?
If there was a trade and Aaron Rodgers is like, I want to go to Miami, there's, it's South Beach, there's no income tax, that's my choice. Much like we thought Deshaun Watson's place to go, that they aren't ready to be like, Tua, thanks for coming. I think Tua is in the. I'd say he's about a half step more safe than Jalen, but I think it's the same situation. I don't think they're drafting a guy. I don't think they're, out there searching for a guy. But I think if one of these the three marquee guys, it's Watson. If the legal situation, it's Russ, and it's Aaron. Those three guys open up a lot of doors.
But you mentioned trade again. Isn't Rodgers a free agent?
Okay. So I think his is a free agent situation, but I think Russ would have to be traded, right?
Right.
Or is Russ a free agent?
I'll get into that in just a moment. So
I don't even know what Russ's contract situation is, and then the Deshaun is such a weird situation because they owe him so much money, but they could release him, and it would probably have to be a trade and sign and trade.
Yeah. So is there?
Whatever. Those three guys.
I'm sorry, Lou.
No, my only thought is that for those teams that would seem to have a guy, but you're not positive about. I kind of put my team and coach's team in the exact same position. The power structure can say all they want and say, "Oh, yeah, he's our guy," but you guys basically had the same season we did last year, Coach. We barely made the playoffs. You barely didn't make the playoffs. You seem to have a young guy who has it all together, but probably could be better. The lure of a Hall of Famer is all completely different.
So, do you want to
put those two teams?
Do you want to put those two teams in our list of teams who are looking to fill spots?
Well, I mean, whatever you just said, I think Baker kind of is in that same situation. I was thinking Detroit is looking a little harder because Goff is definitely on shakier ground. And I think obviously Darnold is on much shakier ground than. I mean, I would put Cleveland in a very similar situation to Miami and Philly. Their power structure has been like, oh, Baker's our man, or at least he's got one more year to prove it. But again, there's a difference between going out there and looking to, sign Ryan Fitzpatrick or spend first round capital. I don't think any of those teams are looking to spend first round capital on the class that's coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson change everyone's mathematics here.
But I think if you're also saying actively looking, that's kind of a little bit of it there. I don't.
Yeah, that's the aspect that
I don't think that. I don't think the Dolphins.
There's actively looking, and there's would listen to.
Right. I don't think the Dolphins. Involved. I don't think the Dolphins are actively looking. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if Rodgers was like, I want to go to Miami, I think you'd be an idiot not to sign him. Especially, the governor down in Florida would get along with him just well. But
wow.
But I don't think that's going to happen because while they have all that money and cap space, I think they're about to do a whole lot of different things with it. But if you go in the actively looking category, I mean, Philly's already been, has been rumored to be looking at different quarterbacks and whatnot, and there's been nothing like that out of Miami. So I don't think actively looking would be the right word.
Yeah, so those are well, I have a grouping of actively looking teams. So you don't think that Miami goes in that list, but would you say that Philadelphia does?
No. I think Philly is in the same boat as. I think that group you said probably could be split up into two groups.
Okay.
I think Detroit and Carolina, and I'm trying to think who else was in there. Like, I think Cleveland, Miami, and Philly are kind of in one group, would listen to things, but are probably going to be happy sticking where they are next season. I think Detroit and Carolina. I'm trying to think who else was in that group. Those are 5 of the teams.
Yeah, Tennessee was in that list. The Giants.
I don't think Tennessee's actively looking for anybody.
Okay.
The Giants are another one. They've said we're sticking with Jones for at least one more year. And I would put Atlanta more in because of Matt Ryan's age. Put him more in the Detroit Carolina side than the Philly and Cleveland side.
Okay.
But I kind of feel like that group kind of has a grade. You grade that group on a curve.
Gotcha.
There's just would listen to things, and then there's guys that are a little more attuned. Like I don't think any of those teams are first round draft capital, especially considering the talent that's in this class. Whereas the last group you're going to talk about, I assume there's only one group left.
Yeah.
Is there just one group of teams left? Those are the ones that are probably actively consider using first round draft capital on one of these guys, right?
Exactly. And this is the grouping. Now, with the exception of, one of those teams that currently has a guy on their list, but there's been so much speculation on whether or not he'll stay or not, that's the reason why this team is on that list. And that team would be, actually the 2 teams, really. The Minnesota Vikings. Well, actually 3 teams. The Minnesota Vikings. No, that's right, because the Raiders have already said that they're going to stick with Derek Carr, correct?
That's what they've said.
Has
So,
Derek signed?
yes, he's on his last year of his deal.
Okay.
So I mean, I guess do we keep the Raiders in this grouping then?
I would put him in the Carolina-Detroit grouping.
Okay, so we can go ahead and take them out of this group. And Seattle, I have Seattle in that grouping because, of course, there's been so much speculation on whether or not Russell Wilson stays in Seattle or not.
Right.
The same thing with the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins is currently in his last year of his deal. He's going to make $35 million. So I have him in that grouping as well as the Indianapolis Colts, who have Carson Wentz, but there's been speculation that he may be released as well. So the teams that are in that grouping, being that we don't know the status of Aaron Rodgers, I have Green Bay in that list, Pittsburgh, previously stated the Indianapolis Colts, the Houston Texans, the Denver Broncos, Washington Commanders. Boy, I got to get used to saying that. Minnesota Vikings, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints, and the aforementioned Seattle Seahawks. So, with the potential QBs that can fill these slots, I'm going to go with the guys that are currently listed as free agents. That would be, of course, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Tyrod Taylor, Cam Newton, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Marcus Mariota, and Mitch Trubisky are the guys that stand out on that list of potential free agents. Now, guys that have come up as potential trade bait would be, like we said before, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, and then two names that have been kind of floated out there but haven't been said often enough in my eyes, because my thought is if these two teams are offered something, if they're given an offer that they probably just can't refuse, as well as the fact that one of these players is very disgruntled, there's a possibility they may address their situations by letting their guys go, and that would be, of course, the Atlanta Falcons and Matt Ryan. And note, I'm not saying that Matt is disgruntled, but Matt could be a target because, of course, it seems as though that Atlanta may be going through an overhaul and with an older QB there. And then they also have what draft pick does Atlanta have? Do they have a high draft pick coming in this year?
They must, right?
So,
Yeah.
You know,
So.
if they have a high draft pick, it's a possibility they may address that need there. And then, of course, the very disgruntled. And I'm going to clear my Instagram
They're picking
account.
8.
What's that?
They're picking 8.
Eighth?
Yeah.
Okay. And, of course, like I was, Kyler Murray, of course, of the Arizona Cardinals, because we've seen him clean his Instagram account of everything that is Cardinal colored. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in order of draft pick, and you let me know whether or not these teams address their quarterback needs, or if they actually stay pat with what they currently have with free agency, trade, draft, or if they stick with what they currently have. So we'll start with the number 3 overall pick in the Houston Texans, who currently have David Mills on the roster. And yes, Deshaun Watson is currently on the roster too, but it seems as though that they're going to ship him. So what do you believe that the Houston Texans will do?
I have one question before we start.
Yes.
Are we saying what we think they will do or should do?
Hey, we can actually do both. What do you think they will do?
Because those are
What
hard.
do you think they should do?
Houston should draft. I mean, it's
Now,
plain.
you don't have to tell me who they need to draft. You can just say draft, and then, you know, if it's free agent route, you'll give me a free agent signing or who they should trade for. But yeah, if it's draft, you don't have to tell me who you think they should draft.
I wasn't going to any specific player because obviously there's really 2 to 3 we may see drafted in the first round, and really 1 or 2 of those might be late in the first round.
Okay.
But it's more Houston's picking early enough that they can get who they want, and Houston needs so much on their team right now. It's not like if you go out and try to get someone high paid, who, by the way, is not going to want to go to Houston yet and play, that would help you immediately. So you know this team is a long-term process. Drafting a quarterback to build with the team would make most sense to me.
All right, Lou?
I mean, I don't think they should use the number 6 pick. There's way too many other problems with this team. I mean, the thing nobody likes to talk about was with so many number 1 picks last year. So many guys picked in the top 5 with the Jets and Wilson and the Bears picking Fields 10th or 12th or whatever, and Trey Lance going 3rd. And
Lou, they're picking 3rd.
You know, and Mac Jones going 15th to the. You know, everybody's like loves to talk about how the Patriots took Mac Jones 15th and he was the number 1 rookie quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's pretty indisputable. The number 2 rookie quarterback last year was David Mills, and nobody even mentions that. And he was picked in what, 3rd round or something?
Yeah.
Like I kind of feel like they have a guy that I mean, there's so many problems on that team that they should not be wasting their time. So my thought is that they sign a Mariota, like a cheap, or a Fitzpatrick would be that's what they should do. But they should save their, do whatever they're going to do with Deshaun. I mean, supposedly they still have this astronomical asking price. So they want like 7 assets, including 3 first-rounders. That is the last thing I heard that's still out there on the table. That's what they want for Deshaun. But as we've all talked about in the show, Deshaun has like a $30 million. It's like last year they could leave him on the bench for $10 million. Right. This year, if he sits on their bench, he's costing them $30 million in dead space. That can't happen. So they're gonna end up just releasing this guy and getting nothing for him. So use whatever you can to get draft picks for Deshaun, but I would use I don't think they should. I think they should stick with Mills, give the kid an honest chance, and sign a Fitzpatrick or a Mariota.
By the way, Lou, Houston's picking 3rd, not 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Why did I must be looking at a bad, an old mock draft. Because, yeah, this one has Carolina 3rd. Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Literally, I Googled mock draft and found some mock draft on NFL.com. This is why I shouldn't trust NFL.com, right?
Don't trust the league there, Lou. It was probably not the first time that's been said. So we're going to move on to the next team. Lou, we're going to start with you. The Atlanta Falcons coming in with the 8th pick. They currently have Matt Ryan on the roster. But again, like I said before, there have been some overtures that maybe he could be a great trade partner for a team that's looking to rebuild. You think that the Falcons stay with Matty Ice? Or do they take a pick?
I don't know.
Take a guy here
because they just got a new coach last year, right? Mm-hmm. He's only in his 2nd year. They don't have a lot, right? I mean, if they can't hold on to Calvin Ridley, then they don't have a lot going on around. I mean, their best running back is a converted wide receiver. Mm-hmm. They don't have a lot going on. Their offensive line is in shambles. It's another team that probably needs to build a whole lot of other things. But that being said, like they have no succession plan whatsoever in place for Matty Ice. This is a guy. He was an MVP. Didn't he have an MVP season?
He did.
Yeah.
The year they went to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've already been looking at mock drafts. I have not seen one mock draft that said Atlanta was going to grab a quarterback in the first round. I just think like so many people think that the guys like Willis and Pickett and Corral are maybe 15 to 20 first round worthy. So everybody thinks like the Saints or Pittsburgh or something like that's going to grab them, or maybe the Commanders. Nobody seems to think Atlanta or Carolina will jump on a quarterback in the first round, but who knows? My guess is they probably stick with him and they don't do anything. My thought is they sit on their hands.
Coach?
They'll do.
Well, I'm agreeing with Lou on I think you keep Ryan on the fact of the biggest thing he mentioned there is Calvin Ridley. I think if you're trying to keep Calvin Ridley and you will make him happy, you at least keep a quarterback he's used to and know can chuck him the ball. And obviously, if Ridley's out there, Ryan will chuck him the ball a lot because the options are few and far between. But I don't think they draft at 8 overall, and maybe they draft offensive line or something, but or even another wide receiver possibly. I don't think they draft quarterback. I think this is where you keep Ryan, maybe even extend him just a little bit, and draft a late round quarterback. So I don't think you're worrying about spending a bunch of draft capital, but as it gets in later rounds, especially because once you pass the really first 1 or 2 quarterbacks, and even then they may not start right away. You're going to have guys that are going to need time to, grow and time to actually develop. So I think that's what you do. You try to find who you think might be your best guy. There's like the guy out of, actually he might go earlier at this point, but the guy from Liberty or a few others, they may
Matt
go.
Willis, yeah.
They may go a little earlier still, whether it's late first, early, or in the second. But if someone like that could fall, or someone in the same skill level, and you could get them more in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round and think that they could work with Matt Ryan, I think you do that. But I think Atlanta has plenty of things they need to fix under this new regime, and I think keeping Ryan and Ridley would be step 1 to at least making your offense be able to work. So it gives you the range to do something else with the early picks.
Well, I'm going to throw this curveball at you guys before we move on from Atlanta, because, of course, it's been something that's been discussed here. You have a team that's quarterback thirsty. You have an owner that just, for whatever reason, loves old QBs. He gets on his jet. He flies down to Atlanta. He talks to Arthur Blank, and he says, hey, we'll give you Chase Young and our first overall pick at number 10 for Matty Ice. What do you do?
Man, that would be a mistake for Washington.
I think Atlanta does it. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, in rebuild,
and then they draft a quarterback.
In rebuild mode, I think Lou's right. In that case, you do it, and then at 8, you take Pickett or best available. And you take Pickett or best available, and you sign one of those other quarterbacks you were mentioning, whether it be I don't think in Atlanta you could sign Cam Newton and not be dead by the end of the day, but considering the rivalry there. But I think, you go out and sign a
Maybe they signed Teddy.
I think they
signed like
Teddy. I was going to say Fitzpatrick, Teddy, someone like that, along with whoever you're drafting, if that deal comes along.
Okay.
Or maybe Jameis plays for every team in that division eventually.
So Jameis could be listed as the NFC South's quarterback. Gotcha. So, moving on to the next pick, the Denver Broncos at 9.
Are they really talking about that? Like, they would trade Chase Young. I mean, why would you trade Chase Young for a guy who's got 2 years left in his career? Like, that's just insane.
There have been fans that have been saying either Chase Young or one of the other young defensive linemen because they're so QB thirsty. That idea has been bounced around.
I've seen that. I don't know about Ryan as much, but there's been a few other quarterbacks mentioned. And, yeah, Lou, every time it's Chase Young being thrown in and willing for them to throw in.
Is it because he got hurt? Like, so now he's an injury problem?
No, it's more so because of his attitude this past season and the way that he took on this past year. There are people who felt as though that he's lost a step. And then his approach to this season was not to the liking of some of the people in the fan base. Yeah.
Lost a step. He lost a step?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like I said, Lou, this fan base is funny. I swear.
Wow.
But it's okay. Get Matt Ryan. He'll command you for a little bit.
So
I sent Dee this infographic earlier today, Coach, kind of on the same subject, and the guy that most of these quote-unquote experts thought was coming to, we'll get to the Commanders. We'll talk about them.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to the Commanders, actually, after we talk about the Denver Broncos. So, Coach, who you got?
Golly.
Because God, I don't even know who was the backup
Locke?
to.
Was it still?
was that?
Was it still
They had
Drew
Drew
Lock?
Lock that they drafted.
Yeah, so
He was a draft pick.
yeah, Drew Lock is still there, but of course, there's been thought that they go after Aaron, who,
yeah.
of course, we like Lou said earlier, announced earlier today on Instagram that he has to
loved
make up a
everybody.
decision on whether or not he's going to play in 2022.
He loves everybody. Loves
yeah.
everybody.
You know what? Knowing Elway and what he likes to do, at 9 overall may not be the worst spot to draft someone, but considering how weak this class is and the fact that even though I kind of liked how Drew Lock played towards the end of that one season and then they kind of just didn't have any confidence in him and moved on, I say they go free agent and they try to get somebody big, whether it's Aaron, whether it's Russell, whether it's whatever, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they go after one of the bigger names, trying to get somebody there in Denver. And I know you made a face there, Lou, but people talk about Garoppolo's win-loss record, and that's always their big thing.
I think that's a very good.
And I
think that could be the fall safe.
And I think that would be Denver's thing. And I think it's more, maybe not as much as what I think they should do, because I don't quite know where the rest of Denver's team is quite yet. But I think it's what Elway likes to do and what he's going to end up doing for that team. Whether he can't get one of the biggest names, he gets a free agent in there to start for Denver next season.
Okay, Lou? What do you think that
they're going to swing for the fences?
Okay.
It's either going to be Rodgers. I think they're going to swing for they're going to try to get Rodgers there. I mean, it just seems like there's smoke, there's fire. It just seems to always be the rumor with Rodgers. He's going to Denver. And I don't know if it's just because of that's where Peyton went. This is where everybody goes to end their career. But I also think that, Coach says you probably hit the one on the head, that the fall back, fail safe, want to call G. And I think Jimmy G would win games there. I would say that they're with 7 teams making the playoffs, they would be my pick to be fall in that 7th spot and probably lose in the first round. But is that enough to, they got a brand new coach once again in Denver. I don't even know who got the Denver job. The guy from the Packers, right? Well, that's why everybody thinks Aaron's going there.
Right.
The guy from the Packers got the job there, but it would not surprise me in the least if that's where Jimmy Garoppolo ends up. Like, I don't even understand what his contract situation is. He completely a free agent? Yeah. I mean, he's already talked all about it. He said goodbye to the fans of San Francisco.
No, he's a free agent.
Under an option, or?
I think he is under an option.
But everybody just assumes that the Niners aren't picking it up and they're going to try to trade him.
Yeah.
Which is really funny, like kind of somewhat of a non sequitur. I literally read like a story the other day about like 6 experts, early pick for next year's Super Bowl. And I swear to God, 3 of them said the Niners were going to be the NFC participant in next year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, with Trey Lance. Yeah, like that's
Bills and Niners was like the pick. Like, and everybody just assumes Trey Lance is in his first year as a starter because everybody just thinks that defense is so amazing.
Yeah,
just makes me laugh.
But you're right there, Lou. Actually, he does have one more year on his deal, does Jimmy G, with San Francisco. He'd be a free agent in 2023.
Yeah, so moving on, at 11, still getting used to saying it, Washington Commanders, who, of course, have Taylor Heineke as their starting QB. But there's been so much said about how not only this fan base, but the coaching staff has not been completely enamored with this play, and they're looking to upgrade as much as possible. So, Lou, what do you think that Washington does in this situation at number 11?
Drafts a punter and plays him at quarterback, right?
Yes. Matter of fact, they could draft the Oregon State QB/punter.
I mean, I don't. Well, they do whatever the not smart thing is. I don't think either thing is I don't think a lot of this class. I mean, there are some people that think that Malik Willis could be a special talent in this league, but it's so raw and needs to be polished. It needs to be developed. He needs to go somewhere where he can sit on the bench. But he's the guy that might actually be a, star in the making. The guys like Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral and Sam Howell and there's one other guy. Who's the Cincinnati guy? David something. There's five. I mean, because the quarterback position is people are so crazy about quarterbacks, I will not be surprised if when we sit down, hope maybe at Coach's house in end of April, if we see 5 guys picked on that first night, it won't surprise me. I think it'll be insane. I don't think there are 5 guys worthy of being picked at the quarterback position on opening night, but I certainly think we'll see at least 2 or 3. Everybody seems to think Willis from Liberty and Pickett, and everybody also seems to think that the first spot we might see taken is at number 11 with Washington. It makes me laugh to think Carson Wentz could be in Washington next year. He's not bad. He's just not great.
He's just not
the right
good.
Coaching.
Yeah.
He can be really good. I mean, the Colts were very close to making it. The Colts also have a really good offensive line, and he couldn't make it work.
Yeah.
You guys have some nice pieces to your offensive line. You've had some bad injury luck with your offensive line. I don't know. I think you guys draft. That's what I think you're going to do. I think you're going to use that pick and draft it, and you're going to stick with Heineke.
All right, Lou. Coach, I'm sorry.
Listen, Commanders fans, DNash, this includes you.
Okay.
Don't draft a quarterback. Look, 2 words. Taylor Heineke. Stick with him. You look at the stats he put up on a team that had a ho-hum year that needs help. He needs help on the O-line, among other places. The defense was still all right. The offense was not. But you're talking about a guy that's still, completed 65% of his passes. Sure, his touchdown-interception ratio wasn't where you'd want it, but it was still on the right side of things. It had more TDs and interceptions, and this is his first year as a starter in the league. And you get help. You can use so much to get help for Taylor Heineke this year. I don't think that's your problem. He's mobile. He's got an arm. He shows some talent. That's not your problem. And Lou's probably right. The way things go, they're probably going to swing for the fences somewhere or draft someone with that first pick. And I think that's a mistake. Lou might be right there, but again, I would say stick with who you got. Quarterback's not your problem.
There is an entire fan base that is probably yelling and screaming at you right now, letting you know that you are far off base. And yeah, I'm just intrigued to see exactly what they're going to do for multiple reasons. But yeah, moving on at the 12th spot, Minnesota Vikings. Like I said before, Kirk Cousins' final year of his deal is going to be owed $35 million, and such a huge need at QB. Someone could potentially take a chance on Kirk, but with his reputation, maybe not. So who's the new head coach in Minnesota now?
The guy who is the OC for the Rams.
Yes.
O'Connell,
I think it is, yeah.
So is he going to trade for
Kevin
Jared
O'Connell?
Goff?
Yes, that guy.
Yeah.
So, Coach, what do you think that Minnesota does at 12?
It's a tough one, man, because I know people give hell to Kirk, and is he overpaid? Well, yeah, but his stats are at least up there, and Minnesota's defense hasn't helped in the last number of years when the defense had been the big thing before he got there. Golly. And let's see. I know they'd have to trade him because right now, what their salary cap is pretty miserable, right? Yeah, they're negative in the salary cap by like 14 mil right now. Because of that, they may have to just trade him, let him go, do what they got to do. Maybe you see Kirk end up in Denver for a couple years. I don't know, but where are they picking?
At 12.
No, they're picking at 12. I mean, I would say Minnesota. They haven't done it in quite a while now. I would draft someone only because, again, it's almost the Houston situation, but a better overall team. And what I mean by that is I mentioned, Houston's offense, what's still left is young, and they're going to have to rebuild like crazy around it. I feel like outside of Dalvin Cook, who, by the way, there's been rumors about he might be on his way out of Minnesota. Outside of Dalvin Cook, the offense is kind of stagnant. It's been all run around Dalvin Cook. And can Alexander Mattison be even half of that if Cook goes somewhere else? I think it's an offense that's going to be in flux. Obviously, it's a team that has to get rid of cap space. I kind of feel like that if at this point on a rebuild, especially new coach, you let Kirk go or you try to get what you can for him and you draft best available in that spot and roll with it. Because I think you've also had such a problem because of the salary cap that you got to do something. And truthfully, if it's just Kirk, you kind of take care of your whole salary cap situation right there, too.
Lou?
Yeah, I mean, what Coach says makes a lot of sense. I think the smart thing to do would be to ditch Kirk, but I think they're going to stick with him. They've stuck with him this long. I think they're just going to stay pat with Kirk, and they're going to deal with their salary cap in other ways, which will probably just make their team worse. But I mean, you got rid of Stephon Diggs and you replaced him with a probably even better receiver with Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Dalvin isn't the cut, which I think is crazy, but he's had injury problems. Yeah, they think Madison can make it work.
Come to Miami, Dalvin.
Yeah, I mean, he's an excellent back. Excellent. Yeah, I'm not saying it's the thing they should do. I agree with Coach, probably because of their caps problems.
Mm-hmm.
But if you let go of Kirk, you got nothing. And I don't think they're too good a team. They're the team everybody always says is right on the cusp of being in the upper echelon of the NFC. But that defense isn't what the defense it was 2 years ago. They've lost a lot of talent there, which means they probably need to draft defense. But my thought is they stick with them.
Okay. So, Lou, we move down to the team that we most definitely know. We'll be moving on to getting a new QB or at least potentially re-signing a guy that was recently there. That was the New Orleans Saints at 18. So what do you think they do? Do you think they draft a guy here at 18? Do they bring back Jameis? Or do they go into another direction?
No, I think they definitely draft a guy. I think Jameis is gone. I think they give Taysom Hill some money to be the starter, and they draft a guy.
Okay. Coach?
Remember, they got a defensive coach. I don't know. Who did they even get to be the new OC there? I don't even know who
no
they
idea.
knew.
Did they make an announcement on who the new OC is in New Orleans?
I don't know. How is New Orleans salary cap the worst in the league?
Is it?
Yeah.
Pete Carmichael is listed as their OC, but they have no defensive coordinator listed because Dennis Allen was. But I'm thinking Pete Carmichael was the OC last year, right?
Mm.
Was he OC under Sean Payton?
That I don't remember. You know, Coach?
Mm-mm. I'd have to look it up. What was his name? What?
Pete Carmichael. He was named the offensive coordinator in 2009. So has he literally been?
Guessing this is Pete
Has he
Carmichael
been,
Jr. He's been
the Saints offensive coordinator for 12 years.
Yeah.
13, going on 13 years.
Since 2009.
So he's basically been Sean Payton's right-hand man for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
But that also means that Payton's been calling. Doesn't Payton call his own? He called his own plays, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So that means he knows the offense. He just doesn't make any. He wasn't making any decisions.
I mean, I'll make it short and sweet because I agree with Lou. Especially looking at the salary cap was just miserable for them. I'm not quite sure how they're gonna get out of that hole. I think you have to draft. Obviously, it also leaves you in a spot that keeping Taysom doesn't allow you to even try to keep Jameis or re-sign Jameis. I mean, so yeah, I think they hold on to Taysom for like a year and draft someone who they think's big. Maybe I think Pickett will be gone. Well, when does New Orleans pick? You said
18.
If Pickett's
I think there'll definitely be guys there.
I think if Pickett's
one of the
not
top 3 quarterbacks.
I think one of the top 2 quarterbacks might be there. But
Maybe.
yeah, I think they draft.
Okay. Moving on to the number 20 spot, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who of course have lost Big Ben. So, Coach, what does Pittsburgh do?
Because right now they just have what's his face, Skull Crusher guy, right?
Rudolph, yes.
They have Mason Rudolph, and remember they have the guy from Washington. They have that.
And they have Dwayne Haskins. Yeah. So, so Coach is right. They only have Kyle Rudolph.
Unless they make a move for, and this is not ever in Pittsburgh's playbook, to make a move for like Deshaun Watson if he's available. Which, by the way, if it was true that Watson wanted to go to Miami so bad to play for Flores, it's kind of interesting that Pittsburgh, who's in need of a quarterback, signed Flores. But we got to remember how Pittsburgh handles things. They don't normally make big splashes in free agency. It's not a team that ever does that. I mean, I guess they could. Obviously, they haven't had a quarterback reason to do it in a long time. But at least everything I'm hearing for the most part out of Pittsburgh is for now they're going to attempt to go with Mason Rudolph. I truly don't know you get anyone better than that from the draft. Mason's at least been capable as a quarterback, not great, but capable. I mean, Big Ben hasn't been great the past couple of years either. But I don't know. I think their cap space solid. They could do a couple of things, get a couple of their big things in the draft to help him out. Obviously, the defense is really good. In fact, the offense is what held them back this year anyways. I don't know if Mason Rudolph really makes the offense worse. So I think you stick with Mason and just try to get a couple pieces to help out that offense, especially in the draft, especially knowing how Pittsburgh handles their business.
Okay, Lou?
I mean, I got to think I'm with Coach. I don't think they'll use the draft pick. Even in the 20s sounds like a spot where one of these quarterbacks could land. But I think they swing for something in free. I mean, what you said their cap space was pretty tight.
It's middle of the road. No, I mean they're okay. They're about plus $29 million.
Oh, okay.
But I could see if Carson Wentz becomes available, or if somebody becomes available. A lot of people think this was a great place for like an Aaron Rodgers to finish his career. I mean, they are stacked. Like, if Aaron wanted to go someplace and win, or if Russ wanted to go someplace and win, like you'd think the 2 best places to go are Tampa and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of pieces in place now. Tampa's got a better offensive line. Pittsburgh's got a better defense. And would seem to have pretty good skill position players with a nice young receiving core and a great young running back. offensive line's a little shaky, but they could maybe address that in the draft. So if these guys, these marquee names, are looking for a place to land, you think Pittsburgh would be top of somebody's list. But it'd be very, I mean, again, like the thing about the carousel, it's always like a game of dominoes. You know, first piece has to fall, and, you know, a guy like Aaron Rodgers has to make a decision. And, you know, if Russ is really forcing his way out of Seattle, that's going to be a big piece. And then, you know, the Deshaun Watson legal situation is obviously a huge domino that has to be figured out first. And then, he named 2 teams himself, and one was the Buccaneers, and I'm trying to remember who the other one was. He named 2 teams, and definitely one was Tampa.
I think it was Minnesota.
Oh, was it Minnesota?
Oh, wow.
So
the one thing
I think that sounds about right.
The one thing that, as you said that, Lou, though, I'll add to it is that you mentioned swinging for the fences. I think Pittsburgh might swing, but they're not going to swing for the fences. They're a team that's very conservative in what they do, especially in free agency. They may take a shot at somebody, but it's going to be someone has to want to play there and take a little less possibly than they're going to get from somebody else willing to pay off the wall.
I don't think Wentz is getting a lot of money. I don't think they could get Wentz cheap.
That's why I think they stick with Mason.
Yeah, but he is not good. I hate to use the word sucks, but it's pretty apt for him. He is not good. Like, you're not going to win games. I mean, I think they learned that last year when Big Ben was hurt. You're not winning a lot of games with Mason Rudolph. Maybe you'll win some games with. I would take a shot with Haskins personally before I took a shot with him, but that's just me.
I mean, he's 5-4 as a starter.
Is that what he's not, getting hit in the head with a helmet? Well. Sorry.
So moving on to the next team, you talked about marquee places to potentially go, and you said this team's name, Tampa Bay Bucks. So, Coach, what does Tampa do at 27? Chances are they probably don't draft a young guy here.
Coax Brady out of retirement?
Well, there has been conversation about that.
No, I think it's a team that, since they've been pretty much set up, and at this point, as long as they don't lose too much, even though someone like Fournette might not be there come next season, I mean, you still got the wide receivers, you still got a good enough defense to at least keep your team in the game. I think they take a shot at a free agent, but it's probably, if it's not Aaron, I mean, I think it's a big shot regardless, but if it's not Aaron and it's not Russ, then I think there's a part where they wouldn't go for Jimmy G, and I think, as crazy as it would be, Jameis Winston ends up being the Buccaneers quarterback again. But I think they go big free agent that can throw the ball and to try to make this team be able to make another run while most of the team is still intact.
Okay, Lou?
Yeah, I think they are definitely in win now mode. I do not see the draft being a option for them whatsoever. And if they want to draft, I mean, they got Kyle Trask sitting there. Not that I think he's any great, but like, you want a young guy, you got a young guy sitting there. Yeah, they are going to go for, and they are such an attractive spot. I mean, you got a Super Bowl winning roster, more or less. I mean, almost all those defensive guys came back from that Super Bowl winning team from 2 years ago. Yeah, the coaches, maybe Fournette's not there, but you got a lot of things in place. You got a really good offensive line. It's probably the most attractive landing spot for somebody looking for a new situation. So you would think guys would be lining up. So yeah, I'd say free agency is where they go. Or I mean, if trade is, I kind of lump trade and free agency into the same one because I don't completely understand why it is that Russ is, seems to be on the block. Other than his just disgruntledness.
Disgruntled, yeah.
And I also don't really understand the Aaron Rodgers. I thought he was completely a free agent, but some people think that's more of a trade situation. But
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand that situation as well. And speaking of, we move on to Green Bay. So since we're talking about Ron, do you think that he comes back? Do you think they go after a free agent in a spot? Do you think they draft at 28 a QB?
I mean, from their standpoint, they do everything, outside of killing people to keep Aaron Rodgers there. I mean, they've made that perfectly clear. That is the smart thing to do. You do whatever it takes to keep Aaron Rodgers there and happy. I mean, up to and well, I think the only thing they don't see cut, which doesn't make any sense. You need a backup. You should have some type of, the whole funny thing about that is like Aaron Rodgers was kind of the petulant child in Brett Favre's last few years and sat there and, wasn't always happy about being the backup and was just waiting for his chance. And when he got it, he took it, and then Favre, went from team to team and was kind of a, retired, unretired, blah, blah, blah. And then, Aaron got to be the good guy. And now Aaron's in that same situation. And it's like, do you remember what it was like to be on the other foot? And then, but he treats Jordan Love so badly.
Yeah.
I don't think they should get rid of Jordan. They should got to have some. I mean, he doesn't. The bits and pieces he's had a chance to play, he obviously has not looked like anything close to Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't even look like a guy that's going to win consistently. But they should do everything possible to keep Aaron Rodgers. But again, it would seem the way the cards have been played that all the cards are in Rodgers' hand now. And then very few of them are in the Packers' hands. If Aaron just decides to go someplace else, my thought is they just stick with Jordan Love.
Okay, so you think they go Jordan Love?
If Aaron leaves, I would say that's what they do.
Well, you said
more
that,
out of stubbornness than anything else.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. So, what about you, Coach? Green Bay, what do they do?
I said it before the season even started that I thought Rodgers wasn't going anywhere. I know it's weird because the more and more it looks like Rodgers is leaving Green Bay, the more and more it makes me think he's not going anywhere. I mean, the team is built to compete now. I think maybe he's just waiting to make sure Adams gets re-signed because that's all up in the air right now too. I know they have some cash issues as well, but I think there's other ways they can solve that, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I trust Jordan Love. I mean, you mentioned Mason Rudolph sucks. Well, I almost feel the same way about Jordan Love, who's had, of course, not much time to start in the league either. Fair. But from the little bit we've seen from either quarterback, I don't feel comfortable. There's been plenty written out there about Green Bay not feeling comfortable about Love either. But I don't know what Green Bay's option is going to be because of that. I think because of the cap and how they have it built right now, if they hold on to Rodgers, who, by the way, I think you were right. I think he had 2 years left on his deal, but there was a clause in it, and that's what the team and him agreed to before the season started, to give him just the 1 year and out. But I don't know. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the 2022, 23 starter for the Green Bay Packers. But if not, I think they use their late pick to possibly draft someone and make it a match between whoever they draft and Love to see who's starting next season. I just don't think they have the cap space to go after someone else they may want to get. I don't even think Jimmy G would be in their radar for the money they have. They lose so much more, and that's saying they hold on to Adams, because they hold on to Adams, they're going to have bigger issues about trying to bring anybody else in. That's why I think you have to just draft and see what happens.
Okay, so the last two organizations, I'll go ahead and lump these two organizations in together. whether or not they trade these guys or not, and that would be the Indianapolis Colts, who currently have, well, if they trade or cut these guys, how do they move on from with their current situation? And that would be the Indianapolis Colts with Carson Wentz, and of course the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson.
Seattle's a weird deal. I'll get to that in a minute. But with the Colts, I mean, it pretty much what's being written seems like they're ready to just move on from Wentz. But I think it's also that they feel like, even though I don't know what the receiving core really is, they feel like they're ready to win now. Meaning, I don't think they're drafting. I think if they're releasing Wentz and the money that he had on the table and that salary, they're trying to make a splash. And one of the big names we already mentioned is the names they're going for. If they don't get one of the big two, so to speak, meaning Wilson or Rodgers, they're going to be looking at a Jameis or a, or Jimmy G or someone, or Teddy Bridgewater, even if they think that's a step up. Wasn't Bridgewater there the year before? Or am I thinking about whatever?
No, that wasn't Bridgewater, no.
He was in Carolina.
Right. So I think they do something else, but I don't think they draft, and I think they try to make a big splash one way or another and bring in a bigger time quarterback, at least than they think, than Carson Wentz, which, by the way, I don't think is the right thing. I like Carson. I think you can win games with him. Obviously, the biggest part of their offense, again, is their running back in Indianapolis. And Carson has been kept as a game manager, and he had a few games where he didn't throw for anything there in Indy. But I also think they wouldn't even try, and their receiving core wasn't all that great. T.Y. is getting up there a bit, and you kind of limited him to begin with. But yeah, I think Indy tries to make a big splash. Seattle, I don't know. I mean, so many people think that Russell's played his last downs there in Seattle already. But let's see, where are they in the cap space? I'm not even finding them. Seattle is... No, they're near the top, actually. They have a lot of cap space. But, it's weird, because if Russell goes elsewhere, is Seattle really a place where people really want to go play? I mean, they have a couple decent wide receivers, but that team is a shell of what it used to be in the Super Bowl days.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll, as far as I know, is still a very light coach, but I think they're trying to go all in to see if they can keep Russell. But if Russell is steadfast on going somewhere else, it may not. But you know what? It's funny because I said Rodgers I thought is staying put. I think at the end of the day, Russell is going to stay in Seattle too. But if he goes, they got the cap space. I think they try to go the route like Indy and try to make a splash and get someone that can win now with drafting a late quarterback, someone that they can develop with a couple years of some free agent that they could get to start for now.
Okay. And Lou?
The funny thing is I was looking at that chart I sent you, D, and, under Carson Wentz, 2 of these 8 experts think he's staying in Indy, but only one other expert has the Colts taking anybody else, which I don't know what that means. The other five people think the Colts are just drafting, I guess. I don't know. Which makes me laugh. And that one other guy has, the Colts going out and getting Jimmy G. Jimmy G's all over the place. It's funny. He's one of the ones that, there's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different teams that people think Jimmy G's going to.
Yeah.
So he seems to be the plugging in everywhere. And one person thinks he's going to the Colts. Yeah, it's funny that everybody thinks the Colts are ditching Wentz. They just start. I mean, it could be a negotiating tactic, try to get his salary down, to get more space. It wouldn't surprise me if they moved on from him. That loss to the Jaguars it was horrible. I mean, they had a playoff spot. All they got to do is beat the worst team in the league, the team that's picking first overall, and they couldn't do it. I think that just sticks in everybody's mind, that one horrible game. But he let him do a lot of good wins. Couldn't beat Tennessee either time, though. So it does not surprise me if they move on, but I don't. They don't pick high enough in the draft, or they just don't seem like the team that's one rookie quarterback away from. They seem like one of these teams like Minnesota, like Pittsburgh, who's like right on the cusp of getting back into that echelon of, being a winning team. Do they go after a Jimmy G? Like, I do think a lot of people think Jimmy G is that guy who's right on the cusp of getting you over the hump. That with the right coaching and the right this and the right that, like it's like the girl who thinks that I'm the one that's going to change the guy, and he's he's not going to cheat with me. Jimmy G's the guy he's not going to throw the interceptions and make the bad decisions when I'm his quarterback coach.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Coach. I would lean, if I had to make any guess on Seattle, I would guess that Russell Wilson is back there next year. Just too much history with that team.
Mm-hmm.
But, he's one of those two big, huge dominoes. It's, Rodgers and him. Those two dominoes have to fall before anything else really falls into place. And I assume Indy's going to wait and make a decision on once they figure out what's going on with those two guys.
Well, all right.
If Russell Wilson went to Indianapolis, does Indianapolis all of a sudden jet up into the conversation with the Bills, with the Chiefs, with the Bengals for supremacy in the AFC?
I think that they might. Yeah. You improve your quarterback spot.
Are they that
with
close?
That
Are they, that defense, that running game, that offensive line?
Yeah. If they can stay healthy, most definitely. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's my hot seat for this week. That quarterback carousel. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly how this plays out in the coming weeks.
That means Lou will have the hot seat next week before we have the bracket show after that, I believe. Food. It's
food.
Lou, food, and then bracket show, right? And I think it's 2 weeks in a row there that we have no hot seat because it's that and then our first week of baseball previews. If there's baseball previews. I don't know if we're doing baseball previews at this point.
That's the other that we didn't talk about that in headlines, but they are on the precipice. Supposedly they are, if they don't have some agreement they said by February 28th, which is next Monday, then they said opening day is delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might have to delay our previews too.
We haven't talked much about the impasse. But
so anyways, we'll at least have 1 week not in there. But anyway, so we are SLZE Sports, SLZeSports.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at SLZE Sports every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. We always appreciate it. And for DNash, for Sweet Lou, I'm Coach Scotty. I feel like it's been a while, so acknowledge us.
Acknowledge the champ.
Have a good night, everybody. Oh. Unless it doesn't play. Maybe acknowledge us.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Or maybe not.
Maybe not. I'll give it one more chance. Because I know everyone wants to stare at our faces just looking perplexed. That's weird. See, this is what happens with technology. Don't you love it, folks? I'm trying to give you something nice to go out on, and it just doesn't want to play. Well, we'll see. But either way, have a good night, everybody.
And everybody.